For decades, many outsiders refused to believe that Africans had built this remarkable city. Instead, myths blamed Phoenicians, Arabs, or even the biblical Queen of Sheba. But who really built Great Zimbabwe? Rising from the granite plateau of southern Africa, Great Zimbabwe stands as a question carved in stone. Its massive walls and silent enclosures have puzzled explorers, scholars, and storytellers for generations. Built between the 11th and 15th centuries, this sprawling city once served as the heart of a powerful African kingdom, yet its origins were shrouded in doubt. Outsiders looked at the complexity of the ruins and wondered, who could have created such a place? For centuries, the idea that local people could build with such skill was dismissed or ignored. Instead of answers, the ruins invited speculation and myth, but the evidence remains, embedded in every block and every shadow. To unravel the truth behind Great Zimbabwe is to follow a trail of clues, each one challenging the assumptions of the past and bringing us closer to the real story of Africa's greatest stone city. At the heart of Great Zimbabwe stands the Great Enclosure, a structure that defies easy explanation. Encircling an area nearly 250 meters across, its outer walls climb to a height of about 11 meters, higher than a three-story building. Laid out in a sweeping curve of stone, the enclosure's scale alone would have demanded the attention of anyone approaching the city centuries ago. This was no accidental heap of ruins, but the deliberate work of a society with vision and power. Between 1300 and 1450 CE, the builders expanded the walls to their maximum height, enclosing a space reserved for the elite and the most important ceremonies. The Great Enclosure was not open to all. It was a precinct of authority and ritual, set apart from the bustle of daily life. Here, the city's leaders could display wealth, stage processions, and reinforce their status. The ambition of the structure raises a deeper question. How did its creators manage to build such massive walls? And what knowledge did they draw upon to accomplish it? The stones of Great Zimbabwe were quarried from the surrounding hills, each block shaped by fire and water. Masons heated the granite until it cracked, then doused it, splitting the rock into workable slabs. No mortar held these walls together. Instead, every stone was chosen for its fit, stacked by hand in courses that leaned gently inward, locking the weight of the structure against itself. The walls rise in sweeping curves, some more than 5 meters thick at the base, their strength hidden within a core of smaller stones and rubble. This composite design absorbs shock and resists collapse, a method as practical as it is ingenious. Along the upper courses, bands of chevron patterns break the monotony of stone, a signature of the builder's artistry as much as their precision. At the heart of the enclosure stands the conical tower, a solid, tapering column of granite nearly 10 meters tall. Its purpose remains uncertain, but its presence speaks to a society that understood both the science and the symbolism of stone. Great Zimbabwe was never an isolated marvel, but the beating heart of a medieval African kingdom whose reach extended far beyond its stone walls. At its peak, this city stood as the capital of the Kingdom of Zimbabwe, a Shona-speaking polity that ruled over a territory stretching nearly 50,000 square kilometers, an expanse larger than many European states of the same era. More than 150 smaller stone settlements, known as Zimbabwe's, lay scattered across the landscape, each one tethered to the authority radiating from the capital. Society here was layered and complex. Power rested with the Mambo, a sacred king whose authority was both political and spiritual. The Mambo presided over a three-tiered social order, the ruling elite at the center, followed by artisans, traders, and herders, and finally the majority, farmers and laborers, whose daily work sustained the city's life. At its height, Great Zimbabwe was home to between 10,000 and 20,000 people, a population rivaling the great cities of medieval Europe. The city's order and ambition were made possible by centralized leadership, where sacred kingship was more than a title. It was the force that organized labor, commanded tribute, and transformed vision into stone. The city's scale, its reach, and its structure reveal a kingdom built on both tradition and innovation, a society that could marshal thousands to shape granite into monuments that still endure. Beneath the grandeur of Great Zimbabwe's stone walls lies a story of gold, veins of precious metal running through the hills, quietly fueling the rise of a kingdom. The plateau's goldfields drew miners and traders for centuries, their labor feeding a steady flow of bullion into the hands of the city's elite. From the 11th century onward, crucibles for smelting gold began to appear in the archaeological record, small but telling signs of a society organized around the transformation of raw ore into wealth. This gold did not remain in the highlands. Caravans carried it eastward, following ancient trails to the port of Sofala on the Indian Ocean. There, Swahili merchants brokered exchanges that sent Zimbabwean gold across the sea to Arabia, India, and China. Alongside the gold, ivory tusks moved through the same networks, prized by distant courts and artisans. The power of Great Zimbabwe's rulers rested on their command of these flows, controlling the mines, collecting tribute from subordinate chiefs, and amassing cattle as living wealth. Gold and ivory paid for imported luxuries, but it was the ability to mobilize labor, demand allegiance, and display abundance that set the city apart. In every crucible and every herd, the material foundation of authority was forged, turning the landscape itself into a source of power. Fragments of blue and white porcelain, once part of a Ming dynasty dish, surfaced from the soil at Great Zimbabwe, an unmistakable sign that this city's reach extended far beyond the African interior. Alongside these shards, archaeologists have uncovered Persian glazed bowls, a scattering of Arab coins, beads of Indian glass, and a single copper coin minted in the Swahili port of Kilwa. Each artifact is a silent witness to journeys that spanned continents and centuries. Swahili traders, masters of the Indian Ocean's monsoon winds, served as the vital link between Great Zimbabwe and the wider world. Gold and ivory traveled eastward from the plateau, reaching the port of Sofala, then moving up the coast to trading centers like Kilwa. There, goods from Arabia, Persia, India, and China arrived by dhow, exchanged for the riches of the African interior. The presence of a Kilwa coin at Great Zimbabwe is more than a curiosity. It is proof of a commercial network that stitched together the Swahili coast, the Middle East, and Asia. Within the stone walls, these imported treasures became symbols of status and power. They reveal a society deeply engaged in the currents of medieval global trade, not a city lost in isolation, but a crossroads where Africa met the wider world. Oral traditions among the Shona still speak of a great stone house built by ancestors whose memory lingers in song and story. Archaeologists have traced the pottery found at Great Zimbabwe to styles unique to the region, each shard anchoring the site within local culture and daily life. Iron tools and gold-working crucibles, shaped by hands that knew the land, match techniques passed down through generations. The city's walls, its layout, and its artifacts reveal more than a settlement. They reveal the rise of a distinctly African state, organized and ambitious, capable of monumental achievement. Great Zimbabwe stands as enduring evidence that long before outsiders arrived, African societies shaped their own histories, leaving behind a legacy of ingenuity and power. For centuries, the ruins of Great Zimbabwe became a canvas for foreign fantasy. Early Portuguese chronicler João de Barros described a great stone fortress, but he could not accept that its builders were African. By the late 1800s, German explorer Karl Marx declared the site the work of Phoenicians, or the Queen of Sheba, searching for traces of a lost white civilization. Colonial figures like Cecil Rhodes seized on these stories, using them to justify conquest. Richard Hall, hired as the site's official guardian in the early 1900s, stripped away 2 meters of archaeological layers, erasing vital evidence in his pursuit of a biblical past. Yet the stones would not lie. In 1905, David Randall McIver's careful excavation found only the tools and pottery of local people. 2 decades later, Gertrude Caton Thompson's all-female team confirmed the truth. The ruins were built by the ancestors of the Shona in the medieval centuries when the Kingdom of Zimbabwe flourished. Today, every serious scholar accepts that Great Zimbabwe is an African achievement, its origins written in the language of the land and the memory of its people. By the mid-1400s, the power of Great Zimbabwe began to wane under the weight of its own success. Centuries of farming and grazing had stripped the soil of its fertility, while the forests that once ringed the city fell to the axe and the fire. Herds grew too large for the land to bear. Gold, the lifeblood of the city's wealth, became harder to find as mines were worked to exhaustion. Trade routes shifted east, drawn to new centers as the Mutapa Kingdom rose around 1430, pulling people and power northward. By the time Portuguese travelers described the ruins in the early 1500s, the city stood empty, its walls silent. In 1986, UNESCO recognized Great Zimbabwe as a World Heritage Site, and the soapstone Zimbabwe bird, once perched atop the ancient walls, became the emblem of a nation. The city's decline was shaped by the land and by history, not by myth, but by the real forces that shape all civilizations. Across the silent stones, unanswered questions still echo. Great Zimbabwe stands as proof. Entire chapters of human achievement can be lost, buried, or denied. Even now, the search for truth challenges the stories we inherit. What else waits to be rediscovered? Like and subscribe to Lost Empires for more hidden history.